Story 1. Our shared doctor encouraged me to get sexually transmitted disease testing because you never really know people completely. She said several times she could not violate confidentiality, but she recommended the tests. My dumb ass was mad at her for thinking he was that kind of person. It hit me a year later, after I caught him with someone else while I was pregnant. It has been over a decade, and hurt fades, anger fades, but feeling dumb, that sticks. Story 2. He suddenly became too busy for everything. He couldn't text or call, but somehow always had energy for everyone else. It's never about being busy. It's about priorities. Story 3. Everything I said seemed to annoy her. I felt she did not like hearing my voice, but in reality she was moving on because she knew something I did not. Story 4. My then boyfriend and I were watching a movie and laughing. When he stood up to go to the bathroom, I held up his phone for the facial identification unlock and told him I was going to look up the cast because I thought I recognized one of the actors. Even though we had been relaxed and goofing a split second earlier, he immediately became incredibly antsy. He leered over my shoulder the whole time, reaching and fidgeting as if I were a loose cat on a nuclear launch keypad. I have never felt the urge or need to look through any of my partner's phones, even after this incident, and he had never hesitated to hold his phone up for facial identification for me before, so I found it extremely strange. Sure enough, a few months later I discovered he had accounts on multiple dating applications and had been cheating on me. Story 5. She had joined a book club, but I'd never seen her read. I didn't notice it as a sign when it first happened. I only realized it afterward. Story 6. She went from treating me like an obsession to constantly talking about the other man. She anxiously waited for his texts and got upset when he did not reply quickly, as one might expect in a romantic relationship. She started treating me like a roommate and used business meetings as an excuse to see him. They are now married. Once, she wore a nice dress to see him and asked me if she looked pretty. It was easy to see her attention shift completely from me to him. Story 7. She was on her phone all the time. Her face would light up with happiness every time her phone went off. After about 3 days of this, I asked if I could use her Facebook Marketplace to list an item for sale. She refused and told me to email everything to her and that she would do it. We were standing there together when she said no, that I could not use her Facebook and again told me to email it to her. That, combined with several days of odd behavior on the phone, led me to ask if she was cheating on me. She said yes. Now we are divorcing. Story 8. He became angry when we made plans that did not fit the schedule of his new lover. For example, we had responded to a wedding invitation months in advance, and when I mentioned it the week before, he became very upset. Story 9. It went from frequent sexual activity to nothing. I did not say anything because I understand not being in the mood. He was certainly in the mood, just with someone else, laughing out loud. Story 10. Their patterns began to change. They did not like drinking but now go out to happy hours after work. They became motivated to work out, put extra effort into their looks, and began planning hangouts with new friends. Story 11. Small stories did not line up anymore. She began talking about things she believed we had done together, although she was referring to the man she was cheating on me with. She accused me of cheating and became increasingly possessive. Story 12. He became very vague about people's gender when describing who he was spending time with. He would say things like, my friend and I went. They did this. We went here. They bought that. When I pointed it out, he gaslighted me, insisting he was not being vague and that I was making a big deal and being controlling. He was actually spending time with other women and careful not to admit it. Later I learned he used the silent treatment to cheat. He would pick fights to have an excuse not to speak to me for days so he could talk to her. He did the same with her so he could talk to me. Story 13. I called my friend to see if he and his twin wanted to hang out. He said he was down but that Drew could not come because he was making out with Sabrina, who was my girlfriend at the time. That's when I started getting suspicious. Story 14. Our healthy sexual life stopped abruptly. If you are not getting it, someone else is. Story 15. Can someone please give me insight into this? I am really struggling. I did not know he had cheated or left me for another woman. He just stopped talking to me. It was weird. We broke up without ever actually talking about it. It just ended. 2 months later, he reached out, saying he could not stop thinking about me and that he loved me. We got back together. For months later, when I went through his phone, I found he had been with another woman during those 2 months. Basically a full-blown relationship. I even saw their last messages. She wrote, "Ew, how was your slimy sleepover?" When he was literally at my place, and he had an apology call ending it with her. After I found out, I called him disgusting and kicked him out. For months afterward, he sent handwritten letters to my house, flowers, and even got my name tattooed on his ribs. It did not make sense. He became obsessive, saying he loved me, wanted to marry me, and would wait forever. Then I kept discovering more lies. Eventually, I blocked him on everything and told him to stop messaging me or sending letters. I feel fucked up. Story 16. This goes back to college. He had a new girlfriend from the dorm he was spending time with. She was in my circle, but we were not close. I found red hairs on his pillow, and that was it. To get him to admit it, I pretended I was psychic and told him I had dreamed he had cheated on me with her. He panicked over my supposed psychic powers and confessed. Later, he dated her for a long while. I think she once punched him in a bar because he had cheated on her too. This was college dorm drama in 1994, so my memory may not be completely accurate. Years later, on a drunken evening, she approached me and said I had handled the news of their cheating very well, and that she respected me for that. That was a clue. You have to love those old cheating stories. Story 17. Gaslighting and holding on to grudges over things that did not matter in the long run, while another man treated her 20 times worse. She lost her morals and character, preaching values she never followed, which were actually yours, and then gaslighting you. She also made strange comments. Story 18. Hiding a phone, becoming secretive, arguing, and growing distant are warning signs. Never ignore red flags. Learn more. Story 19. Their goodnight messages started arriving earlier, but their last seen status showed them online for hours. Story 20. A third party sent you an instant message saying I am so-and-so's wife or girlfriend and I caught my husband or boyfriend Snapchatting and texting your wife. I asked for proof, received it, and then caught her in a huge lie. The lawyer was worth the money. Story 21. She became distant, said hurtful things to me, lost weight, bought new clothes, and started going out with her best friend, who was single, to bars. I confronted her, and she admitted it. Story 22. She started telling everyone except me that we had an open relationship. She bought sexy lingerie, but I never saw her wear it. Story 23. I didn't know at the time. It wasn't until I found her Google search history. It turned out she shared a Google account with my 11-year-old daughter, so everything she searched appeared on my daughter's phone, including the Google Maps timeline and photos that were syncing. Driving to a state park with my daughter, I asked her to look up lyrics to a song we were listening to. She got out her phone, and I glanced over and saw Mormon soaking in past searches. I took note of that, and after my daughter went to sleep that night, I checked her phone and found a lot of disturbing searches and content. Looking back, my dumb jokes no longer landed the same. She was looking for ways to villainize me and asked loaded questions. What does this mean? Whose handwriting is this? She subtly changed her makeup and hairstyle. She started listening to different music, became guarded about her phone, and even yelled at me for trying to be silly and asking who she was texting while we were watching a movie together as a family. She started talking about a coworker a lot, then stopped suddenly. She even went on a road trip with that coworker to visit an old friend. I trusted her unquestioningly. Walmart Plus receipts showed she bought lubricant before that trip. The van broke down on the way back and she had it towed to the town where she worked. She stayed there for 6 days until it was fixed. I'd make chicken noodle soup from scratch and take pictures. Proud of myself. She was working late and her only reply was, "Is the kitchen a mess?" Google Maps shows she would get off work at 8 p.m., go to a hotel with a jacuzzi suite, a restaurant, a movie theater, a residential house, and fast food, then get home at 3 a.m., all while texting me that she missed our daughter and me and how much she wanted to be home. When she did get home, she would sit on the porch smoking weed while on her phone. My daughter and I would not know she was home for a while. She was living a second life with a boyfriend and his children, for whom she was buying things. Walmart Plus receipts showed snow gear, sleds, toys for a toddler, men's belts, pants, alcohol, and a take-action pill. I had a vasectomy in 2016. While it left me in chronic pain, it did work. I got it because of how severe the complications were with the birth of our daughter. The midwife and doctor took me aside and told me we might have to start thinking about which one to save. We moved halfway across the country. I made a few friends, not many. I'm socially inept and have severe anxiety. After the separation, she told everyone I got the vasectomy to spite her, knowing full well she wanted 2 more kids. She had a child with her now husband last January and had the same complications she had with our daughter. Not only did she spread that story, but she was running a very effective smear campaign against me 2 years before the separation. Everyone turned against me. This turned into a rant. Felt kind of good to get it out, though. Story 24. She kept rolling incredibly high for her attacks and saves. Later, I found out she had a loaded die. Story 25. She became overly irritated by the smallest things I did, such as stirring my coffee too loudly in the morning or placing my shoes in the wrong spot on the rack. I think she felt guilty and coped by deflecting, pointing out my mistakes to make herself feel better. Story 26. Your intuition will tell you everything you need to know. Story 27. His pattern of behavior suddenly changed. He became quick to snap at me. He had never spoken to me like that before. He stopped texting regularly and slammed the brakes on any travel plans, outings, or dates. I let it go on for months before I learned through a mutual friend that he was in a full-blown relationship with someone else and could not leave me because he needed a place to stay until he could ask his new girlfriend to move in. Story 28. There were 3 charges on his debit card. Lunch at his workplace cost $5, but the giant cookies were about $1.50. The cookies were too big to eat too. He bought her a cookie every day at lunch. Story 29. My cousin Marv told me, "Hey, I just nailed your old lady in the back of my van in the alley near the donut shop. It was top shelf, buddy." Story 30. She began paying more attention to her appearance and started spending time with a best friend who is a serial cheater. Story 31. I had no idea until the day he ran into a store to run an errand. My phone was dead, so I asked if I could use his phone so I would not be bored. He said yes. I half-jokingly said I was going to look through his things. He gave me a weird look and said okay. I did, and he was messaging other women and asking them out while we were sitting next to each other on New Year's Eve. As a wiser adult, I would not recommend going through a partner's phone, but I am glad I did in that case. Story 32. Distant behavior and a retreat into their phone or personal computer can be a first sign. It may not be full-on cheating at that point, but it indicates they are engaging elsewhere while disengaging with you. Something is wrong. It could be infidelity, depression, anxiety about an issue they are not comfortable sharing, or a combination of these. This can be emotionally harmful to you as well because of the anxiety of the unknown and your gut feeling that something is off. I advise caution and patience. Give them an opportunity to address this. You will feel better and be able to look back more favorably on your response in the long run if the outcome confirms what you suspected. That helps immensely with moving on. Start with a couple of simple inquiries about how they are doing, such as, is anything wrong? If they remain closed off, give them space and time to open up. Stick to what you can control and do not lower yourself to their level. It is not about being weak. Handling this maturely boosts your ability to recover, even if it is not infidelity but something else that upsets you, such as breaking a financial agreement between you, hiding an illness, or struggling to keep a friend's secret. You do not want to damage the relationship by conducting an invasive investigation only to find it has nothing to do with fidelity. Hence, exercise caution and patience. Story 33. She had been passionate and interested at first but became busy and disinterested. We used to video chat frequently and could talk about anything. Toward the end, she had little to say and repeatedly showed her cat playing. In text, she was still loving and sweet, but face-to-face there was a barrier. Story 34. Funnily enough, they randomly accuse you of cheating out of nowhere. Story 35. They were sneaky and hiding their phone. I had a gut feeling and my intuition knew. Trust your gut, ladies. If you feel something is off, it is likely true. Story 36. I picked up his cell phone to hand it to him. I had never seen him move so fast before. Story 37. Looking back, they lost trust in me first for no real reason. Then they kept pushing the issue until I discovered they were cheating. I have always been loyal and never hid anything, so it is an obvious sign that people accuse you that way when they are the ones in the wrong. Story 38. Lack of affection was the first sign. No hand on my thigh while driving, no extra kisses, no holding me for a few extra minutes when I tried to get out of bed to make breakfast. Then, around the same time, he became more exasperated during arguments. When I brought up something valid, he was short with me and I could tell he did not want to deal with it. When he said something like, someone else would feel lucky to deal with this issue you were complaining about, that was when I knew. A few weeks later, I received a text that said, "Hey girlie, Story 39. We are not getting things done. There has been a sharp rise in random arguments about issues we never argued about before." Story 40. The other girl just seemed so interesting to him. He wouldn't shut up about her. Story 41. When I was venting to a friend about his change in behavior, she told me directly that he was cheating on me. She was right. She had been through the same thing. Story 42. I found out she had an Instagram account I did not know about. Story 43. He was oddly possessive about his phone. It had to be next to him around the clock. He would sleep with it under his pillow even though he usually put it on the nightstand. He texted at strange times and angles, often right after sex instead of cuddling. We normally shared whichever laptop was on, but he stopped that. He made me turn on my own laptop for a quick Google search rather than let me see his screen. He stopped inviting me out with his friends. He stopped caring about my pleasure during sex and tried to push my boundaries as if someone else had given him permission to do things I did not want. He became oddly clingy at the beginning of the affair. I think part of him was afraid I would find out, so he tried to keep me occupied and distracted. Story 44. Me. Who do you think about most? Her. Censored. Both. Oh. Story 45. I saw her flirting with her ex on LinkedIn and accidentally left the page open on the computer. Then I gathered the evidence. Story 46. She asked if she could go to sleep with another girl. The problem was that I said yes. Story 47. Vague responses to my questions planted doubt. The email I saw on an open screen proved I was right. There was no honesty in our relationship. Story 48. Their phone was on vibrate, and they carried it with them at all times. Story 49. This was years ago, but he kept making jokes about having another girlfriend. One night he rushed me out of the house and I came back for some reason. I do not remember what it was anymore, and I saw that he had just been using the phone. When I questioned him, he denied using the phone. Until that moment, I had no reason to distrust him, but after that, the truth came out. He admitted to seeing someone else for about 5 months. Story 50. It's always the emotional distance first. When I was 20, my girlfriend was convinced by her friends that there was no way I would stay committed to her, and they told her to get her revenge. They even set her up with a guy. As she was working up the courage to go through with it, I noticed a major shift in her behavior. I found out because those same friends turned on her, recorded her performing oral sex, and posted it everywhere, calling her a cheating slut. While I felt bad that she was humiliated, I was also angry that she took no responsibility for her actions and tried to blame them. It was not like anyone forced her to do anything. I could not even fathom why they would do this until one of those friends tried to be there for me and then asked me out shortly after. That's when I learned just how truly conniving women can be. Story 51. She became distant, answered fewer calls, gave short replies, and suddenly seemed too busy for everything. Story 52. It's either he becomes emotionally and physically detached, or he loves me 10 times more, laughing out loud. Story 53. At first he started saying he was poorly with migraines every night and that he could not be bothered with his phone. All he wanted to do was sleep. When we did hang out, I heard another woman from the bar he drank in ask, "So did you go and meet that girl then?" but I had his phone in my hand. He said, "You just think too much. The girl she's talking about is you." A week later, we broke up. The next day, he had a new girlfriend. He asked her to be his girlfriend within a week of knowing her, and she was pregnant 9 weeks in. I know this because a few weeks later she reached out with suspicions that he had another girlfriend. We told each other everything. The dates and times added up. He had been in bed with me texting her while I slept, then going out with her, getting drunk with her, and texting me the next day saying he had been in bed all night feeling unwell. She still stayed when she found out. That being said, he is her problem now, and you usually lose them the way you got them. I am free to do as I choose, and she is stuck with a known liar and cheat. He denies being with me and called me a psycho ex because he got caught. Story 54. She slept with her phone in her hand, sometimes tucked under her pillow. I was never allowed to use her phone, but she would go through mine constantly. Story 55. She bought a privacy screen protector to cover her phone and make it harder for anyone to see what she was doing. Story 56. There was an emotional disconnect. They started hanging out with people they said they weren't attracted to. Story 57. He started being mean and cold toward me. I knew something was wrong. When I confronted him with proof, he blamed me and called me the bad person for spying on him. Story 58. Extreme touchiness with their phone does not always indicate cheating, but it often means they are hiding something. Story 59. My vagina was burning and itching. The second sign was going to urgent care, and they told me it was not a urinary tract infection. I found out 2 days after Christmas. Laugh out loud. Best gift ever, to be honest. Fuck you, Horton. Story 60. He started caring about his appearance. He bought cufflinks and watches, new shirts, a gym membership, and a new sports car. Clearly none of that was for me. Story 61. He is living a double life and has put me in a false marriage. Story 62. When we received the pictures of her proposal at Disney, I was not in any of them. Story 63. The sex stops. They take their phone to the toilet and text when they're away from you. They become meaner about your appearance or about traits they had never before complained about. Their routines change. They go out more and for longer periods, claim extra hours at work, and their lies become elaborate with too many details and excuses. My ex was so obvious it hurt. He also changed his phone passcode. We had each other's passcodes in case one of us was driving and needed to respond to someone and so on. I finally found out while on holiday for his sister's wedding in Cancun. I flew back the next day on my own and haven't looked back since. Story 64. She became strange and very protective of her phone, and then she told me. When I forgave her, I guess she decided it was too much hassle, so she tried to pressure me to be polyamorous through gaslighting and lies, even though I had made it abundantly clear I didn't want that. Story 65. He went viral on Twitter after he was caught on camera trying to fight someone while with another girl. Story 66. I want to start a new life. They were cheating on me while not officially with their affair partner. Story 67. She slept with her phone under her pillow, messaged until the early hours of the morning, and took an absurd number of selfies. Story 68. He hugged me in bed one night and said he was so sorry for everything he had ever done to me. The other signs appeared shortly after. He became mean and started lying about strange things. He did not come home on some evenings after work and he hid his phone. Story 69. When she said she was going to that Coldplay concert on her own. Story 70. Not me, but my friend's girlfriend puts reverse, draw 4, and draw 2 cards on top of other Uno cards and pretends they should stack. I'm never playing Uno with them again. Story 71. She became very submissive, almost as if she owed me sexually. I caught on to it immediately and didn't care. Story 72. I watched them make out with someone through a window. I knew it then. Story 73. Distancing, stories that didn't add up, and unnecessary travel. Story 74. When I saw that he was starting medications for his erectile dysfunction. Story 75. He tried sleeping with 2 people in our friend group, and they told me immediately. His gaslighting and lying were extreme. I went through his phone and found more evidence he had been seeing other people. He ruined men for me in more ways than one. Story 76. They start to get distant and more closed off than they usually are. You can feel it and your gut is screaming alert. Something is different. What is wrong? Story 77. He was sleeping very late but told me he was going to bed early. He started buying me expensive gifts which I think were from guilt. He kept his phone with him at all times, never left it in a room without him, and always placed it face down. Eventually his friends told me they had seen him out with his ex-girlfriend. Story 78. There was an emotional disconnect. After stepping back and seeing everything, I can pinpoint the exact week they disconnected from me. Story 79. My ex started accusing me of cheating. It was so random that my instincts went on alert. Story 80. When he started spending hours in the gym and obsessing over his figure. Story 81. I have been cheated on twice in my life. Both times, they accused me of cheating out of the blue, while in reality they were sleeping with almost everyone in the city we lived in. Story 82. She put a privacy screen on her phone. We'd been getting pretty spicy with the pictures and texts we were sending each other. So I figured she was just protecting our kids from shoulder surfing and seeing my cock. It turns out she was hiding conversations with other dudes from me too. We worked through it over the last 2 years, and our marriage is healing, but I was in a bad place for a long time. Story 83. He began ignoring me, giving me less attention or paying attention only when he wanted sex, not checking on me regularly, and remaining distant and distracted when he went out. Story 84. I was home on army leave. My girlfriend at the time picked me up from the airport. I was excited to spend the night with her. We had talked about it a few weeks before I came home. On the way back, she told me she had made plans with her girlfriends to go out. I was disappointed, but it also gave me a chance to see my dad, so I was not too angry. Later that night, I got a nagging feeling. After seeing a few of my battle buddies have their Jody moments, the feeling became overwhelming. I decided to go to her house and sure enough, her car was in the driveway. I know it might sound creepy, but I quietly went to her bedroom window. Her blinds did not close all the way, and one slat left a small slit. I got as close as possible, and there she was, being intimate on the bed. It broke my heart because I had been as loyal as possible, despite all the temptation around me. It took me a while to recover until I met my wife. Story 85. For me, the first sign was how suddenly his whole behavior changed. The same man who had insisted we text or FaceTime every day suddenly did not have time anymore. He had created that routine by saying I was not giving him enough attention at the start, but when I kept the same effort, he acted like it was too much. He became more distant, quiet, and irritable. I tried to talk about it and said something felt off between us, but every time I brought it up, he became defensive or angry. He always had an excuse: work stress, tiredness, needing space, and somehow made me feel like I was overreacting. I tried to reconnect, suggested dates, planned activities, and even spent money on things he had said he wanted to do. He would agree at first, then cancel at the last minute or act annoyed when we went. The emotional and physical connection faded, and when I showed affection, he said I was asking for too much. Looking back, the constant shift from "I need more from you" to "you're too demanding," and the gaslighting when I raised the issue were the clearest signs. I realized the problem was not me. He was pulling away because something or someone else was going on. English is not my first language. I rephrased this with an artificial intelligence assistant to improve clarity. Story 86. All this bum does is post inane, spammy questions to farm karma, and you are all eating it up. Story 87. It started with little things. She was supposed to be in one place but was actually somewhere else. Then the finances would not add up. Money began disappearing from our bank account with no explanation. Finally, I discovered she owned a house and property I did not know about. To this day, she has never admitted any wrongdoing, but I refuse to play Monopoly with her anymore. Story 88. She was staying over one night and answered a call from her ex in front of me. I broke up with her the next day. A few weeks later, her ex messaged me on Facebook. He apologized and asked me to give her another chance and to unblock her so we could mend the relationship. I replied with a voice message of me laughing and then blocked him. She remained blocked. It was a strange experience. Story 89. Black hair on the bed. I am blonde. I did not say a word. I just pointed to the strand of hair, and after his speech, somehow he was the victim. Story 90. I have never been cheated on, but asking that question is probably an early sign. Story 91. He started spending more time on the phone, and one day my gut told me to check it. Lo and behold, my unattractive, 5 feet 7 inches tall ex-husband was cheating on me. Story 92. The seats in the car moved differently. There were cigarettes in the car even though none of us smoked anymore. I was hanging out with people I had never heard of. Story 93. When we took a break, she showed me her Facebook dating profile, smiled, and asked if I was looking. I said no. She seemed surprised. To cut the story short, she started going to places she had never visited before, like Sephora and clothing stores, and got her hair done. She first told me she was seeing 2 friends she had met in college, a couple. That night she revealed she was also seeing another man she had been entertaining. Something happened that night and she described it to me in detail. This is one of 2. Story 94. He suddenly needed to help a friend, hid his phone, and freaked out when I asked what he was doing. He said he hated me, so I kicked him out. He later admitted he had been using me for months. Story 95. We lived near each other when we started dating, but then she had to relocate to a city 2 hours away. We decided to make it work, but suddenly she would only come to see me and would not let me visit her, despite my insistence. I started questioning this, and then she stopped responding to my calls and texts. My suspicions grew, and I found out shortly after that she was seeing someone else near home and did not want anyone to find out she was also seeing me. Story 96. He often spoke badly about the new intern at his company, saying she was rude, too thin, and strange. It puzzled me why he spoke so often about a woman he did not like. At least he liked her enough to have sex with her 4 weeks later. Story 97. My girlfriend had a man's contact saved under a woman's name in her phone and would casually talk to him. He was an old coworker who lived near her, while I lived 2 hours away. She swore she was not cheating, but it was never the same afterward. She was likely cheating. Story 98. 2007. She burned through her phone minutes within a few days. After refilling the phone 3 times in 1 week, I pulled up the activity on the website. Why is she calling him so often? Story 99. There were sudden mood swings. He would snap at me without realizing he had done it. It also became acceptable to have less sex. Story 100. My ex hid that he was spending time with his best friend. He called me delusional when I confronted him. A year later, he impregnated her. It is always the person they tell us not to worry about. Story 101. 2 wine glasses on a nightstand. The mental gymnastics while they tried to explain before just admitting it and crying. Me. Well, I forgive you. One more fuck before we break up. Her. Sure. Afterward. I loved you, Hannah. Be good to yourself. No hard feelings. Story 102. She never physically cheated, but the first sign to me that she was monkey branching came when she became defensive after I asked her to tell her online male best friend that we were in a relationship. I thought it would be healthy if the people she was close to knew she was not single, since it would change their dynamic. Story 103. He became much nicer, buying me things and special food. I think he was overcompensating or feeling guilty. Story 104. Suddenly, there is a new opposite-gender friend or coworker. They adopt a dismissive tone for no apparent reason. They no longer show physical affection or initiate contact. They begin dressing to impress and leave the house wearing a lot of makeup. Story 105. My girlfriend of 3 years always had excuses when I asked where she was or what she was doing. She did not answer texts or calls. One night we went to a club and she had too much to drink. I went through her purse and found another cell phone in a secret pocket. I took pictures of the text messages and the photos she had with other men. I was devastated. I woke her and asked her to leave my hotel room. I took a flight the next day to come home. I have not spoken to her since. My only regret is that she has a young daughter and we were becoming close. I hope her daughter does not turn out like her mother. Story 106. His buddy opened the door, looked at me, and said he could not make up his mind. He picked up someone else on the first weekend of the years we spent apart. Another partner did the same thing. I dreamed about it, and then a girl called in the morning, giggling because he had answered on speakerphone. Both still wanted to continue the relationship afterward, and I told them to go away. I said they probably had a disease and that I could not trust them. Story 107. One weekend his phone suddenly broke and stopped working. My calls went straight to voicemail, but when I called from a different phone it rang. He had blocked me and was with someone else. Story 108. He started screaming at everything. Simple, innocuous questions were treated as attacks. His friends stopped coming over, and he began hanging out with them at their place. That was the story until I followed him to a coworker's house at midnight. Story 109. In all fairness, my ex-boyfriend just told me he was sexting someone. I respect that more than finding out on my own. Story 110. I am going to show my age here and admit how oblivious and trusting I was when I was younger. This was when MySpace was fading and Facebook was becoming more popular. I was exclusive with a guy, but we were not official because he wanted to keep it private from his ex. We got along well and he often said how good I was to him, but he would occasionally post angsty song lyrics on Facebook and complain that women always screw over nice guys like him. Friends asked if we had gotten in a fight, and I had no idea because he had been with me the day before and everything seemed fine. He would say his ex had called and he had posted, because he was thinking about how she treated him. It took me longer than I care to admit to realize his ex was not an ex at all. They had been off and on the whole time he was seeing me. He used people in every possible way, always mooching off me and his friends. In my defense, he was not the smartest person, but he could gaslight with the best and was a skilled manipulator. He eventually got exposed on social media because he had been stringing along several gay men to get rides, money, and gifts with promises of being together soon. I look back and wonder why I did not see the signs, but at least I was not the only one taken in. Story 111. When she scored 100 on that algebra final exam, there was no way she did it without cheating. Story 112. After going to the movies, they turned their phone back on. It connected to my car, and a message came through thanking them for a great time the night before. Story 113. It has never happened to me. If a partner asks to open the relationship, it is already too late. They are either cheating or already have someone lined up. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.